Cool.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Behind the Food podcast. Today, I actually had a guest show up because I remembered to remind them. Jahaan, welcome to the show, and thanks for doing this, man. I think we were on the Forbes 50 under 30 the same year, right? A long
Yep,
time
that's right.
ago, because we're
Yeah, a
both
couple
old
years
now.
ago. hmm
Um, your product has been one that like before I knew you, I had friends that used it. I've also used it, so like super excited to do this because it's one of those things where I think we people that are in CPG or food and beverage meet a lot of other people with like cool startups and they're like, oh, it's a super cool product. Usually you meet the founder and then you try their thing. It's not like out there. Um, I liked that with your product. I was like a super big fan prior to meeting you. And I'm like, oh, that makes it like a lot cooler. For me, there's this other thing that I use or I buy rather at Costco. It's called Bare Bones. I don't know. It's bone broth in like a stick. So they're
Uh-huh.
like powdered bone broth, and you can like put it in soup, like make soup with it, or just drink bone broth, which is what I do, like a weirdo. But yeah, man, I love the fact that I was a big fan of the product. I usually like to start this off with just asking you like, how did Gainful get started? And for those of you that don't know, Jahan's brand is Gainful. Um, Super big fan of the brands, but like, how did you get started? Where did the idea come from? And did you do CPG before, or was this
Yeah.
just like thing you decided to do randomly,
No,
like I
this
did?
was this was my first thing out of college. So I actually started it with my best friend from high school while we were still kind of last semester of senior year in college. Just think about what we're going to do next. My co-founder's name is Eric. We were co-captains on our high school soccer team. We both played on club soccer throughout college, but never had like nutrition guidance. We knew that protein powder was something that people take, but didn't know exactly, how to navigate that that shelf that you can imagine when you walk into like a vitamin store, a vitamin shop, a GNC, and it's just like tons of different labels, different tubs, and you don't know where to start. And so we wanted to create a brand that was really thoughtful and help people find what nutrition's right for them. And so we started Gainful, and it was launched as a personalized protein brand. You took a quiz, answer questions about your fitness type, dietary restrictions, and your goals, and we would formulate a blend tailored to you. So it's just all about being thoughtful, not being one size fits all, and getting people the nutrition that's right for them. So yeah, and also like on the point of CPG and just kind of being a fan. One thing that I've always felt like pretty grateful for is the opportunity to be a fan of my own product. Sometimes I'm jealous of SaaS founders or AI founders because of those margins. But the best thing about Gainful is I use it every day, and it's a part of like my life and like a lot of other people, friends, family, they can all use it and yeah, be a part of that experience. So I think that's something super special about CPG in general.
Yeah, it actually, now that you're saying that, is not only super true, but yeah, it's hard to be a fan of your thing when you're selling like B2B like finance software
Yeah, exactly.
or something like that, like along those lines. That's cool, man. So, how old were you when you guys got started? It was like right out of college. Were you 22?
Yeah, it's 2021, about to turn 22. I think we launched the website on my 22nd birthday, so that was a good birthday present. But yeah, so it's been I know close to a decade now. I'm in my 30s. Uh, yeah, it's been it's pretty wild to spend your entire 20s building one company. But yeah, I'm happy to have had that opportunity.
When
Grateful
you
to be in
think
the industry.
back, when you think back all the way to like when you guys first started the company, you're like coming out of college, you wanted to do something. Was there like a pull for you at the time to say like, and I ask this question just kind of in the context of Megan and I have been entrepreneurs. Well, Megan has been an entrepreneur in residence at Belmont. I've done like advisory work for like students there, which is the school we went to recently. And I talked to a lot of kids who are like in that senior year and they'll be like, I feel like I'm supposed to get a job. Like I
hmm
just went to school, all put all this time and energy and money into this thing. I feel like I'm being irresponsible if I decide to pursue the thing that I've been working on. And a lot of them, like a lot of students have like a startup that like has legs. Like they have
hmm
something, not just an idea, but something that has sales and traction and they like want to pursue it. Um, How did you deal with that when you were coming out of school? Like, was that something that was on your mind, or were you guys just 100% in on this thing, and you're just you're just that kind of person?
Yeah, I mean, I have to take myself back to that time. I think one of the best parts was having a co-founder like Eric, who's not only someone I trust as my best friend, but also just a remarkable operator and someone I wanted to be on the same team with. So definitely de-risk that aspect. And I think, common guidance is find a really great co-founder, because it's going to be really important, especially in the first few years when things are not so cut and dry. But all throughout college, the plan was to get my degree, apply for some of these big tech jobs. I studied computer science and chemical engineering, and so definitely the the Facebooks and the Googles and the Apples were on my radar, kind of junior senior year. Um, so it was certainly in the back of my mind, and I remember having actually a job offer from my internship that I had junior year. And I kind of had a decision, like, do I go all in on this, or do I go kind of the safe route? And I made the decision based on what was way more uncomfortable, because I was really torn. I I decided that the tiebreaker was this one makes me a lot more uncomfortable, so I'm gonna go this route. And if it doesn't work out, the safe job probably will always be there. No one knows the future, but I think that's kind of the way I looked at it. So it's certainly a leap of faith, and looking back, something that I'm super happy that I did kind of take that leap.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, now in hindsight, it's like, oh, this thing worked out. This is something that's good. I like your thought process there, though, of like, this thing makes me more uncomfortable. Let's go that direction, because that's something that, I mean, I don't even know if I would have had the foresight to do that at 21. Megan and I started Nobex when we were 23. So, like I'd been out of college for about a year and a half when we were like, we can't do this anymore, and went all in on the thing. And I don't even know if I was thinking about it from a discomfort level at that stone point. I think the discomfort for me then had been created by like the corporate environment I sat in for like a year. I could
Hmm.
not stand. Um, and so then the discomfort of entrepreneurship felt like a warm, cozy blanket to me, at least to my personality type. That should tell everyone listening to this a lot about what's wrong with me. I enjoyed I still enjoy not only the risk, but also like the not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. Like that I get excitement out of that. Whereas like with a corporate job, it's like so road mapped. No matter what you do, like if you had gotten a job at Meta as a product engineer, it's like you kind of know what's going to happen, right? Like your career trajectory is pretty like obvious. Um, but that's cool that you had that foresight. Do you think that came from like a sports background, or like your parents, or like what made you think like that at like that young of an age?
That's a good question. I think actually at the time I was reading a Paul Graham essay. Do you know Paul Graham is the founder of YC?
Yeah.
It was actually, I guess this was after we got into YC. I can't remember. It was around the time we were getting into YC. So I was definitely like, studying the founder, and I think he had an essay kind of similar around if you have two equal opportunities, the one that you don't want to do, there's a reason why it's still equal even though you don't want to do it. Or the one that's scarier, there's a reason why. So I think I remember reading that essay, and then kind of that. Um, being the paradigm that I made the decision based off of. Uh, but yeah,
That's honestly like really good wisdom right there. And shout out to Paul Graham for being
yeah,
the goat. I
the
mean,
guy's wise for sure.
yeah, I mean there's like a lot of like there's a lot of people like that I think that like influence you along the way, but it's cool that it was like that, like via the essay that like got
Hmm.
into your head and you were like, okay, this makes sense. Like pursue the difficult path. I think it's wisdom that people shouldn't necessarily like take for granted either. Because honestly, in almost every facet of life, like the difficult path generally ends up yielding like not only the best results, but like a much happier state of like being
Hmm.
at the end of it. Um, and the
Yeah,
like more simple path, or I guess like like the more easily traveled the road, the like more bored your brain gets.
yeah.
It
I
also
think the
doesn't
analogy.
result in much.
Yeah, I think the analogy that it's kind of coming back to my memory now, was if you're like being chased by a monster and you have a choice to go down the stairs or up the stairs, like a big monster that's way bigger than you should go up the stairs because it's harder and it's also harder for the monster chasing you. I think that was what it was. Or there was definitely an analogy there, but yeah, like you said, choose the harder path.
I like
And
that analogy. I'm gonna start telling it to my kids. I'm gonna tell it to
yeah,
my 5-year-old. I'm gonna be like, hey, so if a monster was chasing you,
go up
you
the
know what to
stairs.
do now.
Yeah,
That means you need to clean up your toys at night. This is just
perfect.
infinite wisdom right there.
Yeah,
That's awesome, man. So like when you guys got started for the first time, you mentioned like how you got started. The way I discovered your brand actually was I saw, I think like an Instagram ad for it in probably 2020 or 2019 that was like, hey, take this quiz. They'll tell you like what protein you should use. I thought it was awesome. I was like, this is amazing. I don't know why, but I think the feeling of personalization pulls in like the consumer, at least especially when they're health focused. Because they're always looking, at least I am, for like that thing that's gonna like help you like, and you know that like each human is different and you're like, okay, I don't want like some like boilerplate thing, like can we just like tailor this to like whatever it is I'm trying to do. So I thought that was cool. I think that's what attracted me at first. But when you guys got started, like out of the gate, you're 21 years old. How did you go about creating something that had like personalization in like the physical product space? Because that's really hard. Like,
yeah,
did you guys find a manufacturer that wanted to work with you that way, or what did you do to make
yeah.
that happen?
Well, the first step was to make sure we get the science right. So our very first hire was a dietitian out of the University of Cincinnati, and yeah, he was integral to making sure that we, you know, got the right kind of logic in place of the quiz. You know, didn't overdo it, but had enough personalization to give everyone an additional step of value, rather than just going and getting it something generic off the shelf. So that was step one. In terms of the manufacturing, that certainly was another um, roadblock of many, especially getting started. Um, and again, you gotta go back to Paul Graham, I guess, do things that don't scale. We definitely, for the first year or two, our Friday nights and Saturday nights were spent mixing protein powder in the kind of shared kitchen space that we rented out on those nights. So yeah, we would work on Friday, and then from like 8 p.m. till like 2 a.m. we would just be shaking up all the protein powders for the orders that we got the previous week. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely some, Saturday morning, 2 a.m.s driving home with a car full of protein powder from the kitchen that I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I have a computer science degree, and I'm just spending my Friday nights, 22 years old, shaking protein powder. There's definitely some sweat equity in that, but that's how we got, from, I guess, maybe like 1,000 orders to eventually, once you get to a certain level, you can contract that out. But it was a stepwise kind of function. We didn't go straight from, we didn't go out of the gates and go to a big time manufacturer. We started it ourselves. Then we hired someone to do essentially what we were doing, except Monday through Friday full time. And then hired one more person to do that. And then once we got to a certain level where we can hit minimum order quantities, then we contracted that out.
Yeah, I absolutely love that story and that logic because it's very similar to my own. Granted, mine was like forced like via our pivot into CPG was forced via COVID. So like
Hmm.
I shut one of my scoop shops down and then took our employees that had been doing like a bunch of different jobs and I was like, you make pint jars of cookie dough now. And they're like,
Hmm.
okay, I guess that's what we do now. Um, and it was, but it was very like manual, right? And like even in the beginning of our company, prior to us having like restaurants, we like worked out of a shared kitchen space, made the product when we could. We didn't necessarily go to like a co-man or something because it's just too big to start with. And I talk to so many young founders now. And I don't know where this comes from or this logic, but a lot of kids who are like, yeah, man, so like I have to get off the ground. We're raising a pre-seed round. We're pre-revenue. The MOQ requires us to put down like $45,000 for inventory. And I'm like, you've never sold the product before. Have you made
Yeah,
it? And half the time they're like, no, haven't made it. Haven't made it, haven't sold it. I want to buy it from this manufacturer. I want your money to do it. That's
yeah,
awesome. That's the whole full circle moment. But I'm always like, why couldn't you like just make it work? And like not only kudos to your story, but like every other entrepreneur like you. whenever I see people like really go the distance, it feels as though they started off in that shared kitchen, for whatever reason it might be. Probably because you can replace a lot of like financial burden with creativity. And I think the people that are able to do that have some sort of like personality trait that is required in order to go the distance.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's like
Yeah.
hard to identify, right? But it's like this ability to struggle and then think creatively to get the thing. There's a story I heard about Richard Branson the other day that he got Virgin Atlantic off the ground with $0 in
That's
equity.
great.
So he like pre-sold plane tickets, didn't have an airplane, and called Boeing every day or every week or something like that, asking to buy an airplane, or asking for them to lease him a airplane that they weren't using. I guess he did it for $0, so he didn't buy it, and eventually got a hold of these people. They were like, "Look, we only sell to one client in each country. We're not going to sell to you. We sell to I can't remember who was. We sell to British Airways. We don't sell to you. We don't even know who you are." And he was
Hmm.
like, "Well, I've already sold tickets to New York. You should lease me the plane." And it was this whole thing about like that's how he got the plane, and then the fuel he purchased on a contract, so he didn't have to pay for it until 30 days after the flight had taken place. And you like hear this story, and you're like, "Oh wow, that's crazy." And then I'll hear entrepreneurs be like, "Yeah, I really want to open like this food truck business, but I don't know how to get it off the ground." And it's like, well, this dude got an airplane for free. I'm sure you can figure it out. I'm sure you could call every single food truck for sale that's on like Facebook Marketplace and be like, "Hey, do you want to own or finance it to me?" I'm sure
Yeah.
you can like borrow, beg, steal, whatever it is you have to do to get the food to be able to start the thing. But it's like this mentality of problem solving that, as you know, as you scale, and I'd love to ask you about this, but like as you scale, it doesn't go away; it just gets worse.
Yeah.
Which
I mean, also something that comes to mind was like it was kind of I always say this, it was an advantage to be kind of naive starting a company because like you can't really foresee the problems. You definitely can't foresee the solutions. But being naive, you just solve the problem that's in front of you, and you continue moving on. Now 10 years later, 9 years later, there's definitely pressure from the board and other employees to have a much more streamlined vision of like what does 5 years look like from now. Um, and like if I were to start another company, that new type of mentality, like I'd be afraid that would get in my way. Because when you're starting a company, like don't think about 5 years because you don't need to worry about that yet. You need to worry about what's kind of right in front of you in the early days. Like I wonder if Richard Branson in that story like had a similar kind of mindset of just like let's just figure out how to make these next 6 months work, or if he
it's
had the
probably a mindset of like compartmentalizing, right? Because you don't go beyond. My wife Megan, my co-founder in No Baked, is really good at this. Of saying like, what do we need to solve like this month? Not like how do we get like caught up on this like grand vision, because that not only if you know what you're doing, or to your point, if you're not naive, that grand vision will become so terrifying so quickly. There's no fucking way you can execute on it. It's the whole like eating an elephant thing. But yeah, maybe compartmentalizing like day by day. Like today we have a problem, we solve that problem. We know we're moving
yeah
toward the thing. As long as you don't think about it too much, it doesn't sound that scary. Because if I was to say to you back when you were 21, like, yeah, man, like you're gonna have this giant ecom business, you're gonna have activations in Target, there's gonna be all this stuff going on, there's gonna be manufacturing issues, there's gonna be like a ton of employees, you would immediately get overwhelmed. Be
yeah
like, I don't
absolutely
even know how we're getting there, guys.
yeah
Stop.
yeah totally. And it's also I think another trait is just belief in yourself that when you hit those problems, even though you can't foresee them, like you're gonna figure it out. Kind of like you said with the food truck, like you know you can figure it out. There's ways through it. So
Yeah,
it's
that's my
also
favorite example just because I've seen it happen.
yeah
The guy who co-hosts this podcast with me, Daniel, he did that to start a new food truck brand. And he didn't even necessarily need to do that. He just was like, why would I? He's an experienced entrepreneur, but like you wouldn't necessarily go immediately to the thing where you go to someone who's like in the corporate world today, who's my or your age, and you said like, how do you start a food truck business or something like that, they would immediately be like, well, you need to go to this food truck manufacturer. You have to buy this new food truck. It's going to cost you a bunch of money. You got to buy all this inventory. You have to write a business plan. You have to do all these things, and it's going to be like $400,000 or something.
Mm,
And it's like, well, yeah, and probably won't work out very well because you're not going to make your money back. Whereas like there's creative ways to do a thing that I think they come from a certain personality type or just a certain way of looking at the world that's very like first principles focused. So they think about the problems and then solve them as opposed to like looking for uh, the way that people usually do things. Which the way that people usually do things does not necessarily mean it's the best way to do a thing.
absolutely.
So after you guys got the company started, shaking the protein, doing the thing, hired some people. The other question I have about that is like, so you guys created personalization, but I'm assuming it's like the facade of personalization. How many personalized formulas did you have at first? Did you start with like 3 or 5?
I mean, we actually started super high. We had over 50 different SKUs when we
Whoa.
launched, but it's because we could do that because we're mixing it up ourselves.
Yeah.
And then our first customers, the first 100, probably had like personal relationship with like 20 of them. And they told us everything we needed to know about which SKUs don't we need, which ingredients should we not be including anymore. And that kind of doing by hand allowed us to move really quickly through some of the things that weren't working, to prune off the excess that wasn't actually adding any value to the consumers. And with the personalization from day one, um, when we talked to these consumers, everyone realized that there was not infinite personalization, but there was this blend was made, for my goals and my needs. And so I always find that really interesting that people realize that there were, at one point 50 down to 20. And now we have 7 blends that kind of fill the the different use cases that we've seen over the years pretty effectively. And we use all of our quiz data over 3 million people, 4 million people have taken the quiz now. Used all that data to figure out, okay, how can we best create the minimum amount of SKUs to serve the maximum amount of people? It's kind of a fun little optimization problem.
Yeah.
And yeah, just kind of taking a data first approach, using customer data to make sure that we serve them the best we can.
Were you guys frustrated, or were you personally frustrated when you had to like limit SKUs and like go from like 50 to 20? Did that bother you in your head, or were you just like always on the path of like we have to optimize this?
I think we always made the decision pretty in a calculated way, both from the data standpoint as well as talking to our customers. Obviously, if a customer's SKU gets discontinued, there might be some pushback from that customer, but there was always a rationale of like, here's like the change, and it's such a minor change. Like maybe it's, I don't know, 1 gram less carbs in this one than one you had before, but it still serves a purpose. It was always easily justified. I think that's the most important thing. We never did anything just to do it. We always did it with justification behind it.
That makes sense. Um, so tell me about like you guys' like early growth story. So like you guys, I imagine, scaled up D2C pretty like in a pretty big way prior to launching into any retail.
Yep. I mean, we founded the company in 2017, and it was certainly the heyday of Facebook and Meta. I guess it was Facebook at the time. It was funny though. Like I remember one of our investors in 2018 said like, "This is not like Facebook in 2012. Like you can't do what worked in 2012." And 5 years later, obviously, it just changes so quickly. Back in between 2017 to 2020, whenever iOS 15 happened, that was our growth channel, and it worked. That's how you kind of got introduced to the brand, and many of our customers found us through that Facebook, Instagram ad that talked about the main value prop, which was take the quiz, personalize your
Yeah.
plan.
And prior to iOS 15, it was like a really great growth channel. I feel like a lot of people got super doubled down into it though, including myself. Um, it effectively killed my D2C business. It didn't kill it; it broke our business model, and then we
Yeah.
killed it because we were like, we're not going to lose money. Um, Plus, I ship a very heavy product. The question I guess I have for you is like, where were you guys at when that like shift happened? So you're growing and growing and growing via like the paid ad channel, doing other things as well. I imagine like email and everything else you have to do to like really build a funnel. But like when that happened, was that the first major shift in the company?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it was scary when it happened. Like you said, it broke a lot of the assumptions that went into the business model. And also the first 4 or 5 years, we like knew we were too reliant on this one channel, and we knew that the fragility of being reliant on one channel existed. And like so many other companies, it was proven right. We'd always tested out other platforms at other channels. I don't want to say like we had anything figured out like before that happened. But again, it was kind of just like, okay, iOS 15 is here, it's happening. CPA's doubled overnight, and you just got to figure it out. Whether it's influencers, whether it's podcasts, whether it's outside of home advertising. We had enough test data over the last 5 years to like know exactly how to navigate the situation, or not know, but use our best judgment to navigate the situation. And that's what we did. We never turned our back fully on the direct response ads. And it's still part of our growth channel today. Um, but but yeah, it's definitely a lesson in that the power of diversification allows you to be flexible and when things go wrong. So it certainly wasn't easy. It certainly wasn't, even looking back on it, like it was pretty brutal. But yeah, we were able to weather the storm. And as the markets changed, so did kind of our priorities. No longer was it scale D2C kind of infinitely, which it felt like you could do in 2017. It was, okay, we need to find new distribution channels, which then led to launching Nationwide and Target in 2023. Eventually, Dick's Sporting Goods and Platinum Shop as well, to get our footprint in retail. But even that, it wasn't. It sounds really good. It was really good. It was really exciting. But even that, it's never black and white. There's always challenges that come with that as well.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people look at retail as like this like golden goose, especially if you've ran a D2C business for a while. And in reverse, a lot of people who are very like retail first look at D2C as this thing that's like just for some reason in their mind like infinitely easier. It's always like grass is always greener syndrome. Um, so was the iOS update in like realizing like, hey, this channel is not as profitable for us anymore. We got to figure out like new distribution. Is that what pushed you guys toward like thinking about retail, or was it something else? Like what made you think about like I guess moving away from the channel of just like ecom and saying like, okay, we can do like in-person retail and like here's how we're gonna do it. What drove that?
Yeah, I think was part of it was the lesson of the power of diversification. Having a bunch of different channels allows us to be pretty flexible. Um, this our launch in retail happened after COVID, but on the flip side, like your kind of business, like imagine how hard it was if you were retail focused during COVID. Um, so certainly wanted to be diversified. We saw the ceiling of D2C kind of come down, or it felt like it came down, or at least it was harder to push it higher. And yeah, ended up with a really good partner in Target to kind of launch what our vision of our brand would be in retail space. Still kind of staying true to the customized aspect of it, but in a physical shelf space, which was pretty cool. So the opportunity came. We definitely wanted to be diversified, and it worked out for us to launch nationwide.
What surprised you guys? I guess I could go two different ways here. I'm gonna keep going down this rabbit hole. What surprised you guys when you first launched into Target? Was that your first retailer?
Yeah, that was our first retailer, and we,
What
we
were
were.
the things that like surprised you that were not great?
Um, I mean, I think all the things that retail first businesses look at D2C as the grass is always greener. Obviously, Target needs to make money, and so there's certainly an extra pressure on margin. Um, Also, for me, the best part about D2C and the best part about especially the first 5, 6 years of Gainful is like you can make decisions that change the business every single day. And it felt like with retail, you had to wait a year to like make those decisions. Maybe 6 months if you're like if the buyer's like cool with it to make some changes, but you launch and you kind of just wait until the next reset. And, for us, it was in March, and we had never had experience in retail before. I launched and I saw all these opportunities. Kind of like you don't know it until you see it in person, until you see people kind of walking through the aisle and like looking at your product, and you're like realize like, oh, we could have done that better. We could have done this better. If it was D2C, you'd be like, let's do it today. Let's do it tomorrow. Let's fix this. Whereas in retail, it's like you just kind of you're there for a year. So that's definitely one of uh, the negatives. It's just a little bit of a slowly moving iteration process.
Yeah, it's definitely an iteration that happens still kind of in a different world, like a different type of business than what D2C is. D2C is so much closer to like tech. We're saying like we can iterate, we can have MVP and figure out what our customers want. We can move super fast. And retail is still very much like a dinosaur business. It's very old and hasn't changed very much. And people
Yeah,
are trying to change it, but that's that's it's a slow moving thing to move like a supply chain that's that big, I think, and like really get it to like change. And also, if for anyone who has a CPG company, you'll notice as soon as you start to interact with distributors, retailers, even some brokers, it's like, hey, use my portal, fill out my form, do my thing. And this stuff looks like it was built in like 1995. So it's not exactly like giving the vibe of new or
yeah,
changed.
exactly.
Um, I want to like go back a little bit in your story. So, at what point after you guys started the company did you decide to raise money?
We always intended it to be a venture-backed company. So we kind of used our internship uh, money. I worked as a software engineer for 10 months in Silicon Valley back in 2016 when remember they used to throw money at interns. Oh, good day, good day, good day. So I had a little bit of savings from that, and for the first 3 months, Eric and I kind of put in kind of all the cash that we had into the business, um, which wasn't a lot, but enough to buy some product, to buy some ads, and to like see like, hey, is there something here? And there was, and we got about 50 customers through that process, which then when we put it in front of small angel investors was a lot more compelling. It's like, look what we have done. And it's not like a blind leap of faith. Like there's obviously something here. Um, and yeah, that definitely helped the conversations in the early days. The way we did it was we applied to pretty much every accelerator in the US, from Pittsburgh to Cincinnati to Y Combinator in the Bay Area. And we got rejected to all of them except for one, and that was in Cincinnati. So we packed our bags and went to what was called the Brandery in Cincinnati for 3 months. They gave us a $50,000 check, and that was kind of the start of the route of where we'd eventually go to raise more money down.
That makes sense. So like you guys were kind of raising from like day one.
Yeah,
Um, what
yeah.
informed you guys as you grew the business and as you changed the business model and like figured out what was working, figured out what wasn't working? What informed like how much money you guys tried to raise? Was it like something that you guys modeled out like, hey, here's how much money we think we'll need, or was it more driven by like the investors that were backing you?
I mean, as a 21, 22-year-old, we would take all the money that would be given to us. There was definitely, it was the limit, or the strategy of how much money we would raise is how much money we could raise, which wasn't a lot. It was
Yeah.
pretty challenging, and I don't blame people. Like I don't know if I would give my 21-year-old self a check to run a business, but
You got to be ready to lose all the money. And
yeah,
I tell people that all the time when they're doing like angel investments. Ever since I started Sprout last year and we started actually investing in brands, I realized pretty quickly as an entrepreneur, you're thinking like, we're going to make this work. But if you apply that same logic to every single brand that comes in front of you, you have to at some point realize like 90% of these will fail. I don't
Yeah,
know why they'll fail, but they're for sure going to fail, which means you're never going to see this money again.
yeah. The way angel investors should think about it is literally flushing money down the toilet, and then every so often, like 5 or 10 years down the road, a lot more money comes back out of the toilet. You're like, oh,
Yeah,
okay,
like explodes, and you're like,
yeah,
what just happened?
yeah. So that's the way that angel investors should think about investing. Um, but yeah, can't remember what I was going to
You were
say, but
saying like you wouldn't have given your 21-year-old self money.
that's right. But yeah, the limiting feature was definitely uh, kind of the ability to raise. Um, we once we hit a certain threshold, we actually brought in a new CEO, which was interesting. Kind of 3 or 4 years into the business, we were doing close to $10 million. But we wanted to raise more money. Like obviously, if you're doing 8 figures, we've definitely proven out something. Um, and so we actually hired a new CEO who was 15 years older than us, a lot more experience, had raised money before, and that made it a lot easier to raise, which was I found pretty interesting, and uh, I guess it makes sense to have that experienced leadership kind of backing us. So that was 5 or 6 years ago. We were able to raise a Series A. And it became a lot easier, especially through COVID and a couple years after COVID, for a CPG company to raise money. Of course, the last 2 or 3 years has been um,
Super rough.
super rough, maybe impossible, unless you're just like, you know, unless you don't need it. I guess it
Yeah, I
was,
feel like the only way to raise money after 2022, like in 2023 on, which I tried to raise a Series A for No Baked in 2023. That didn't go well. And then we just decided to get profitable. But the people I've met that have raised money, it's been, to your point, like didn't need it, more of like a private equity thing. Like we'll buy like half the company and like you're EBITDA positive and you've scaled. And like this is a little different than like venture money. Every VC I'd ever talked to since 2023 has been like very quiet, especially in the consumer space. I mean, I'd say in the last 6 months, maybe not as much. I've seen people get funded. Or close funding rounds, but they're so much smaller. Valuations are way lower, way lower. There's a company that is raising right now called Good Girl Snacks, and they make like a competitor like pickle snack to O Snap. Um, Tons of social media traction, not a lot of sales. They claim they're going to do like some multiple millions like this next year, but we all know, you and I both know that that's made up. And I found it interesting looking at like their situation because they're raising, I don't know, it's a sub $10 million like cap on the safe. Pretty small. I think if I had had their company in 2021 or 2020, I probably could have raised it like a $20 million valuation. They
yeah,
probably could have raised like the 3 or 4 million they're trying to raise right now at like a 20, $30 million valuation, like something bananas because people were just willing to believe in the dream. And now people have come back down to earth in a very big way.
yeah,
Like
absolutely,
it seems to be very like based when they're when they're raising. They're like, this is the reality.
yeah.
Here we are.
It's certainly a different time than the 2010s. Yeah, met a big part of it. Just maybe the economy as a whole. Obviously, I saw a graph of like revenue multiples in just like 2020 through 2022, just like obviously skyrocketed. Now it's back down to earth. But yeah, I'm not so sad about it. I'm like a lot of companies, Gainful's number one priority now is profitability, whereas 2017 through 2021 it was just like grow and figure out profitability later, which was a little bit scary. It felt like flying close to the sun, but just having a really solid business model that makes money, uh, to me is more exciting than trying to just burning money to try to push the top line out higher.
Yeah, I agree with you. I met a founder at one point in the last uh 2 years, and I can't remember when I met him, but he had a beverage brand. I think it was a craft beer brand based out of Charleston, South Carolina. Um, and I was at the time just trying to meet more founders. Oh, it was about a year ago. So this is about a year ago. This time last year, I meet this guy. We're talking. I'm telling him like, yeah, man, like I had I've had like 2 years where we lost significant money. Outside of that, like we've been pretty profitable. And those 2 years, for everyone's reference, were 2021 and 2022. Growth for the sake of growth. And it was interesting, like comparing that in my head. Like I was very uncomfortable losing tons and tons of money when it didn't seem clear why we were doing it. You could say it was like customer acquisition, whatever you want. It definitely was customer acquisition. And you can also claim that maybe it worked or worked in our favor in order to get profitable later. But I think when you're doing it, it doesn't feel very good. I don't think it ever feels very good. And this guy looks at me and he's like, "Yeah, well, when I was running the brand, we lost between $40,000 and $400,000 every month for 5 years." I was just like, myself probably would have had panic attacks. I don't want to do that. I have no desire to do that. This guy exited the brand, so like I guess it worked out. But yeah, you say flying close to the sun, and it's like that is what that is, right? Like from 2017 to 2021, you guys were like, okay, well, we're gonna grow and we're gonna raise, and so was everybody else. For the record, at a certain point, you start to realize, like, yeah, this whole thing turns off if people stop giving me money.
Yeah, exactly.
um, which they can control, and you have no control over, right? Like, I ran into that with a financing partner we ended up never using when we were growing in retail, and we were profitable. We were like, hey, every time we grow and we need more inventory, like we need to be able to borrow for it. They were like, yeah, well, like you have to be able to like pay down your loans before you can borrow more money. We were like, well, that's really not going to work for us. Like we ended up going to standard like PO, like AR factoring route when we were growing, because that way you can like tie it to like, we got more orders, we need to borrow more money. Whereas like every other kind of financing, it was like, yeah, well, we can't support that. And it's like, well, if you can't support that, that means like I will have to say no to like continuing to grow at some point. And the same thing happens to a lot of brands, because like if they, to your point, weren't able to get profitable around the time everyone decided they were going to stop giving everyone money, it kind of turns your growth engine off a little bit. And
Mhm.
then it feels very defeating, because it's like you were, again, like reliant on a very external factor, like Facebook ads or money or whatever it might have been. So, with that in mind, what did you guys do to change things up when the market started to kind of dry up and like turn against founders to be able to raise? Um, you mentioned you had a very experienced CEO and you guys' selves. Like, what did you do to like try to like focus on profitability as opposed to like continuing to grow?
Yeah, I mean,
I imagine
first,
it wasn't a switch overnight.
um, in some ways yes, in some ways no. For us, it was just focusing on the channels that were working, and working in a profitable way, which were actually just Amazon, D2C, and yeah, we had to kind of turn our backs on the retail because we just didn't have the proper um, we didn't have all the ingredients to make it work. Whether that was the right price, the right product, the right amount of marketing. We didn't have like the same also like 7, 8, 9 years of history to tell us what to do. Whereas
Yeah.
on the D2C channel we did. So definitely a kind of a sad thing because like you said, that golden goose or whatever you said, the golden egg, whatever of retail, we had to turn our backs on.
Yeah, people look at it and they're like, it's pretty shiny, but sometimes you have to turn your back on that kind of stuff. I
Yeah.
recently at No Baked, we turned our back on quite a few things. We've done that over the years in the name of like what works as
Hmm.
opposed to what feels good.
Yep. Yeah. And it's I find that to be like what you said is like sometimes the things that feel good, like saying you launched on Target feels pretty good. It like gives people signal that hey, this is legit. Um, but if it doesn't make you money, then uh, it's not a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. To your point, like that is, I think that's the thing that like only experienced operators in the space like eventually come around to understanding. Whereas like the culture and generally like the way your brain works on your first go around in the space, and the culture of like 2015 to like call it like 2022, people really liked to hype exciting PR events, like
Hmm.
things that felt good and looked good, whereas like on paper they're objectively bad business decisions, but they're good signal, right? Like I can give a signal to like our investors that we're doing well. I love being on investor emails now from founders because I really love getting the updates that I can like read through and be like, I love how you just twisted yourself into a pretzel to make it sound like things are going well,
Yeah, yeah,
which is what everybody does, by the way, guys. Like, say like we're in a bunch of new stores. We grew a bunch last month. We locked down this new manufacturing partner. Like you can say all kinds of cool things that sound cool. But like at the end of the day, running a brand and growing a legitimate business boils down to like focusing on profitable channels and then like doing the thing that you or I guess solving the problem that you set out to solve in like a profitable way. Like I've always kind of referred to it as like product channel fit as opposed to like product market fit because like sometimes there's certain channels that just like vibe with your product
yep,
and certain things, whereas like you said, like there's other things like you could look at retail for your products, even mine and many others, where it's like, are we in the right place with the right product at the right time with the right price? Like, are people actually going to pick this up off the shelf, or are we just like pretending to be excited over something that's not actually ever going to make us money? um it's an interesting like thought process that I think a lot of people don't have to go through until they already paid the slotting fees and are doing the thing, and they're like, oh, this is not as cool or as good as I thought it would be.
yep,
um
exactly.
yeah. So is that kind of where you guys are at today? Like a renewed focus on D2C and like the things that work, and then like, do you have a retail strategy, or is the strategy kind of like we're just going to pause and like sell into the accounts where like they buy our product and like that's cool and here we are?
Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you, but yeah, we're on a pause right now. I think lots of lessons learned in the last 3 years of retail. The biggest one was exactly what you said, the product channel fit. We kind of took our brand. I don't want to say copy and pasted it into retail because we definitely made changes. But what makes our brand work is the thoughtfulness around the quiz and around the personalization, which obviously in retail is really hard to pull off. We didn't quite get it right. We had two tries with Target over 3 years, and it was pretty high stakes. Like most people launch in a regional grocer, or even if they don't have Target, it's only a few stores. We launched in every single Target store. We had 13 different SKUs. It was a huge swing. And another lesson is our buyer who our first buyer, got promoted, and we had a new buyer who it wasn't her baby of like this was my swing, and so it made the decision a lot more, yeah, a lot easier to kind of not triple down on what we were trying to do. So yes, to answer your question, a renewed focus on the channels that work, focusing on channels that have product channel fit, continue to listen to our customers. And then with retail, it's about continuing to do our homework and some soul searching on exactly what are the value props that Gainful has that can translate to retail and still resonate with customers in the aisle. So those are the things that we're kind of working on every day here.
Yeah, dude. I mean that makes so much sense to me. And it's something that I've been hearing from a lot of founders lately. Is like we have a renewed focus on like the things that are actually working, and I think as people slowly like start to come around to like figuring out like what is that for my brand and where I'm at, um, you'll start to see more and more people make like decisions that look like less exciting from the outside, but like if you were inside of that business, you would be like, oh, this is going to be really good, or this has been really good, and like this is working for us. Um, I like to that point, like I personally at No Bakes, we completely cut our entire CPG business and put it on pause for like 6, 7 months.
Hmm.
Um, in order to kind of like reset a bunch of operational things with manufacturing, but then also um to actually go back out to like each retailer where things were actually working and say like, hey, okay, so like we would like to continue. We're gonna have to continue like this, like in a new way. Are you cool with that? Or like
Hmm.
this is an account that seems like we're gonna do really well here. Talk about like how that can continue. Whereas like in the past, we had a huge focus at our brands on making like the distributor happy. Sounds completely insane when you think about it. You're like, oh, you want to make Unify happy? Like that's your goal? I'm like, yeah, that's That's our goal. We get enough accounts in each DC to make sure we keep our nationwide like presence and make sure that things are moving and make sure we're offering enough promos that everyone's cool and buy tickets to every single trade show and spend literally like six figures a year on like promotion with this dumb distributor for no apparent reason.
Yeah,
Um,
it's definitely. I know exactly what you mean, and you have to
it
remind
was
yourself.
like it was like making people happy, but not like necessarily making the customer happy. Like trying to
Exactly.
make the gatekeepers happy,
Yeah.
which you're doing because you have a goal in mind, right? And you guys probably did a very similar thing where you're like, um, I want to make this like a good experience for Target and for our buyer and for the people that believed in us, as much as I want to make it a good experience for our customer. But like the problem is that we kind of have to focus on our customers eventually, and that's about it. And your relationship with them is just so much easier. They give you money, you give them a thing.
Yeah.
Gets
Exactly.
rid of all the nonsense.
It feels like a shortcut when you go whether make the distributor happy or the buyer happy. It's like one of those things again. It feels good. It feels like we're doing something to get an immediate result. But again, if you focus on the customer, that will in turn, of course, uh, make the buyer or the distributor happy. So it's not so obvious when we say it out loud, but it's easy to fall into the traps that you and I have fallen into. It's like human nature, and letting your ego kind of get in the way of the best decisions.
Yeah,
Um,
and I don't even know if they're traps, if not like things or like things that people have to kind of like follow through on, regardless of what they're doing or regardless of what wisdom they're given. And I don't necessarily yet know why that is, but every time I talk to another consumer founder on this podcast or just like in private, I slowly learn that like everybody goes about it in a different way, but has very like they have like canon events to their journey. Like everybody has a problem with their manufacturer at least once. Everybody has a retail experience that's the first time. Everyone has a national launch. That's the first time. Everyone has some kind of distributor story or something that went wrong. And a lot of them are things that they are very unique to the brand and to the founder's experience, but they're also very much the same, like over and over and over again. Like I can't remember what podcast I heard this on, but there was like the story of like the Kodiak Cakes founder, and like they almost went out of business because they ran a promo with the distributor, and then they got a bill for like some untold amount of money. And no, I don't remember specifics, everyone, but everybody's had a similar experience to that. I actually have, where like I sold, I can't remember how much the fucking product was. It was like 80 or $90,000 of cookie dough. Um, I think to Unify or KE. I
mhm.
can't remember which one, but I just remember getting a check for like $12,000. What the fuck?
Yeah.
It was great. But I was like, oh, I'm experiencing the same thing that this dude experienced in like 2003 or whenever it was. But now here it is, 2021 or two, and I'm in those same shoes, yet I'm a different person with a different product, different place. Uh, it seems to be something that people experience over and over and over again. Some version of that mistake.
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
also experienced some version of like all this other same mistakes. Anyone who was selling in D2C all experienced iOS 15, or the mistake of being doubled down into ads way too much, uh, which I love. It's great. Um, well, here's another question that I have for you, and then we'll kind of wrap up. If you were to give yourself advice, like I guess like the 22-year-old, 23-year-old you advice, and you guys are like getting started and moving down the road, is there like specific advice you would give yourself, or do you think all of it was kind of like learnings that had to happen in real time in order to make everything make sense?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I definitely think you have to go through it to learn it. Advice, and it's interesting. Even the mistakes that we made, like if I were to do it again, even with the knowledge, like it's hard for me to say that I wouldn't do some certain things because you don't say no to certain opportunities. Like for example, launching nationwide in all like 1,800 Target stores. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe it was too fast, but like you would have to be so confident in yourself to be like, actually, don't give us 1,800 stores, give us 400, and we'll figure it out from there.
You gotta really have some stones to say that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, guys, I would rather not sell you stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to cut my potential revenue in a fourth or less. I don't know. I guess maybe the advice is just don't get too caught up on the negatives, and keep pushing forward. That's probably pretty bad advice. I'll think about it some more. That was bad advice, um,
I
but
mean,
yeah.
dude, I kind of appreciate like that advice because it's something that like I wish I would have told myself a lot earlier on. The first time I ever had, so when we started No Baked, obviously we were very young. Um, the first time I ever had a panic attack from No Baked, which I didn't know it was a panic attack, by the way, everyone didn't know this. We were growing really fast, so we were opening like our third or fourth scoop shop, and we were reactivating our D2C business. And this is in like 2018. I think I was 24 years old. I thought I was having a heart attack, but I'd like stressed myself out so much. By the way, things were going so well. Nothing was going wrong. I stressed myself out over like things that should have just been like by the wayside, but I hadn't had enough experience like doing this thing enough. So that like then yeah, I like panicked to the point where I thought I was having a heart attack. Like you had like chest pain. And I went to the doctor after that too and was like, I think I might have like something wrong with me. I'm 24. Like I think I had a heart attack and that's not good. And they were like, oh, that's not good. We'll get you like a blood test. Eventually they were like, yeah, so you had a panic attack. Like, oh, I didn't know what that was. And in the years since, by the way, I've talked to many other people who are like, oh, I have panic attacks. And I'm like, yeah, dude, you don't have heart problems. You're just a stressed out person. Yeah, to your point, like that advice is actually pretty good because if you get caught up on the negative things, not only is this journey like kind of impossible, but like it's sort of like 90% small negative things and then 10% like super good things.
Hmm.
Very much like being an angel investor, right, guys?
Yeah.
You have like this weird power law thing that's going on in your personal, like it's by the way, it's like subjective, right? Like I imagine for you, it's mostly subjective. Most of the negative things are just like, I think they're negative, and so therefore bad. But like they're not like company killers
Yeah, definitely.
usually.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said like you can be wrong so many times when you run a business. You only have to be right once, as long as you're really right. Like you can be like 1 for 50, or 1 for 100, as long as that one time is like you hit the nail on the head. It's all it
Yeah.
takes. So like you could literally fail 99 out of 100 times, and then that one time. It's all it takes.
Yeah, I mean, it is a volume game. It's
Mhm.
like so much a volume game, and it's something where I wish more people would see this. I wish I would have seen this earlier on in my life in general, that like more shots on goal is so much more important than like doubling down on the same fucking shot over and over and over again and convincing myself that if we don't make this shot, all is lost. When it's like, dude, you could just keep shooting at the goal. Like stop getting hung up. And I still do this. I still have to like check myself on this. You stop getting hung up on like this one has to be perfect.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, like they're not. Even when you're getting, and it was actually easier for me when I was getting started because I didn't assign so much value to it. And today, um, and you guys, you have the same trap, right? Where like now Gainful is a bigger thing. Now Gainful has expectations of a board and investors and other
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
involved and employees and stakeholders. And so the stakes are higher. And so then it makes it harder to be like, yes, we're just going to continue iterating and taking shots on goal when it's like people really want it to work now, today, like more predictability. But that's not really what you get out of a startup, is it? And it's kind of a startup for a very long time until
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's tough needle to thread, and I think you got to be flexible and, like you said, compartmentalize at the right times.
Yeah, for sure. Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for doing this podcast with me.
Yeah. Thanks.
Uh, I appreciate it. I think people will get value out of it. Tell everyone where to find Gainful at, where they can buy it, and then where they can follow you. so I can
Cool.
tell them all to do that.
Yeah, check us out on gainful.com. If you really want, you can also buy us on Amazon. And you can find me on Instagram, JAH_AAN. So my first name with like a little underscore in the middle. And then you can also follow Gainful, just at Gainful on Instagram.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, Sean. This is awesome. I appreciate it. Guys, please follow along. You know, comment on the live stream, even though I'm not commenting back to you right now. I was talking to Jahaan. And please tune in next week for our next guest. Thanks, guys.
All right.
All
Thanks.
right.